The shriek of the re-entry thrusters echoed through the cabin of Valkyrie 9, cutting through the tense silence. Sergeant Lex Halverson leaned forward in his harness, the neural ports at the base of his skull sinking to the feed from the GAU-21X mounted in the side hatch. He didn't blink. He hadn't blinked in the last 60 seconds. The gun was awake now, its targeting feed rolling across his augmented vision in a constellation of vectors and red zone alerts. 3 minutes to insertion, Captain Amani Reyes called from the command seat, eyes flicking across the transparent tactical overlay hovering in the air. Her voice was calm, precise. The sound of a woman who had dropped into war zone so often the adrenaline only sharpened her focus. Visual confirmation of drone swarm inbound. They're packing heat signatures beyond last month's intel. Halverson cracked his neck left, then right. We adapting or aborting? We adapt. You fire. Rover, the ship's embedded AI, purred through the comms. Trajectory stabilization engaged. 1 drone locked. Acceleration vector confirmed. Suggest engagement in T-minus 10 seconds. Outside the craft, the skies over Yemen blurred with ash and turbulence. The insurgents had hacked old atmospheric scramblers to distort satellite tracking, but it couldn't hide the thermal bloom of drone engines. These weren't improvised quadcopters with rusted screws and cheap plastic. They were carbon-skinned, plasma-rigged, and fast. Too fast. The Valkyrie shook slightly as it broke through the upper storm layer. The desert below glinted with bursts of white light, muzzle flashes and detonations far too coordinated for backwater rebels. Halverson didn't like it. The enemy had evolved. Target acquired, he muttered. The GAU-21X spun up with a mechanical growl, feeding rounds the size of cigars into its triple-barrel mouth. He could see it now. A blur at first, then shape, sleek, needle-like, its wings almost humming with energy. The Houthi drone dove toward them, zeroing on their heat signature with alien precision. The way it moved was unnatural, almost predictive. It dodged the first burst of countermeasure flares. Then another. Lex, it's yours, Reyes said, voice low. He didn't answer. He was already locked in. With a single pulse of thought, he opened fire. The roar of the GAU-21X was less a sound and more a physical force, hammering through the frame of the dropship like a war drum. The tracer rounds painted burning arcs through the sky. The drone dipped, corkscrewed, then surged forward again. Then impact. The 5th burst caught it dead center, the kinetic shells tearing through its midsection in a blur of sparks and shredded armor. It exploded in a brief, bright scream of flame, its payload vaporized before it could breach their airframe. 1 down, Halverson said. How many more? Rover answered flatly. 16 drones detected on approach. Estimated time to contact, 90 seconds. Captain Reyes stood, her boots magnetic locked to the deck. LZ's gone hot. Change of plan. We're not just delivering payload, we're the front line. Halverson, keep them off our tail. Copy. Reyes tapped her comms. Team 2, prep for ground breach. We're diving into a hornet's nest. As the crew scrambled behind him, Halverson kept his eyes trained outside. He saw the swarm begin to fan out, no longer mindless automatons, but a coordinated assault net. Each one carried a payload of microcharged thermals designed to ignite on kinetic impact. That kind of tech didn't belong in a desert war. Rover, he said, never breaking gaze. These aren't off the shelf. No, Sergeant. Signature analysis confirms hybrid tech, Earth-built chassis, off-world circuitry. Halverson swallowed hard. So we're not just fighting insurgents. Correct. The GAU-21X spun again as another drone came into range. This time the kill was cleaner. No evasion, no tricks, just a perfect burst into the heart of its engine. Halverson watched the wreckage tumble in a fiery arc toward the sands below. Below them, the combat zone came into full view. The outpost was surrounded, the automated turrets shredded by prior assaults. Friendly beacons blinked desperately from inside the compound perimeter, a last-ditch call for rescue. Reyes looked over her shoulder. "We land in 30. Get ready to bring hell." Halverson nodded, his grip on the weapon tightening. The neural interface vibrated subtly, syncing fully with his cortex. His heartbeat slowed, his focus sharpened. He wasn't just a door gunner, he was the first line between survival and annihilation. As another drone entered his sights, the last thought he had before firing again was simple, instinctive, absolute. Not today. The instant the Valkyrie's landing gear kissed dirt, the ramp slammed open and heat poured in like a tidal wave. Sergeant Lex Halverson unlatched his harness and swung the GAU-21X to a hard vertical lock. Smoke coiled in thick plumes around the compound, and the scent of scorched metal, burning polymer, and ozone stabbed at his senses. The first thing he saw was a turret, half melted, its gun barrel drooping like a snapped bone. The second was a man sprinting toward the ship with a bleeding shoulder and a dead comms unit in his fist. "Where's your commander?" Reyes barked as she helped the soldier inside. "Dead," he gasped. "EMP pulse knocked everything out. We couldn't call for backup. They started testing new drones 3 days ago. They're not local." "Noticed," Halverson said grimly, scanning the ridge with his scope. "Movement at 3 o'clock. Small profile. Watching." Captain Reyes clicked her tongue. "Lex, cover. I'm going in. Sergeant Vake, you're with me. We're not leaving survivors to get boxed." As the squad poured into the base ruins, Halverson set the GAU back in place and scanned the perimeter again. He hated static positions, especially when enemy units had air superiority and off-world tech. The fusion of Earth weapon frames with something more precise, something not meant for this battlefield, was beginning to gnaw at him. Then he saw it. Not a drone this time. A biped. Thin, unnaturally still. Camouflage flickering across its armor plating as it crouched in the shadows of a crumbled wall. He magnified the feed, isolating facial contours. Not Houthi, not human. "Rover," he said, voice low. "Tell me that's a glitch." "Confirmed contact. Unknown operator class. Biological signs consistent with non-terrestrial species. Weapon system, unknown. Likely observer drone coordinator." Halverson didn't wait. He fired. The rounds chewed through the wall, kicking up clouds of debris. But the thing moved before impact, ducking out of frame like it had predicted the shot. A shimmer vanished behind the rubble, and the feed blinked red with a lock warning. Something had painted the Valkyrie with a targeting laser. "Captain, we're not alone out here," Halverson said into comms. "I have a visual on a—" The base shuddered with a blast from the northern wall. Halverson was already swinging the GAU to intercept, eyes flaring with tracking overlays. Drones poured through the breach, no longer in ones or twos, but as a cohesive wave, silent, coordinated, suicidal. He opened fire again. Tracer rounds lit up the compound, and bodies, drones, rained in chunks. But for everyone he dropped, 2 more advanced. They had learned. Their paths curled and weaved around suppressive fire, avoiding kill zones with uncanny intuition. Halverson pushed the neural interface harder, syncing with the gun like it was an extension of his spine. Reyes' voice snapped in his ear. "We've got wounded. 10, maybe 12. We need airlift in 5 or we're dead." "Copy," Halverson said. "But I've got bigger problems. One of these bastards is controlling them manually. Alien, smart, watching us. That changes our exit plan. Can you take him?" "Not yet." Then he saw movement again, farther at the ridge. The shimmer returned, visible only for a blink, and the drone's behavior shifted immediately, as if they were reacting to its command. So that's how it was working. The drones weren't just semi-autonomous, they were slaved to a field commander. Reyes was speaking again, urgently. "We're prepping launch. Cover fire needed at the breach now." Halverson snapped back, swinging the GAU to target the breach. He laid down a hailstorm of fire, ripping the air apart with a rhythmic fury that made the ground quake. His eyes burned, but he didn't blink. Couldn't, not when lives hung on his trigger finger. The last of the team stumbled aboard, dragging wounded, yelling over the chaos. Reyes slapped the hull twice. "We're up!" the Valkyrie screamed as it lifted, vertical thrusters pushing against the churned air. Halverson didn't stop firing until the breach fell out of view. Then the shimmer returned. Only this time, it was on the roof. The figure leapt, clearing the air like a blur of energy, and landed on the side of the ship with an audible clang. Its arm morphed, fluid-like, into a blade. Halverson didn't think. He unhooked the GAU, stepped to the side hatch, and aimed point blank. "Say hello to Earth Metal," he growled. He fired. The burst tore the creature from the hull, flinging it backward through the air like a broken wing. It didn't scream. It didn't bleed. It just fell. Down, 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 until the sand swallowed it. The hatch slammed shut. Reyes was breathing hard, knuckles white on the bulkhead. "What the hell was that?" "Not a drone," Halverson said. "That was leadership." She nodded once. "And it knows we're not backing off." As the Valkyrie climbed into the storm-racked sky, silence fell between them. But it wasn't peace. It was tension, coiled and waiting. War had changed again, and they were just beginning to understand who, or what, was orchestrating it. 3 days later, Halverson stood on the edge of a flight deck, wind whipping at his jacket as the sun dipped below the horizon of Outpost Veritas, a floating base tethered above neutral waters. The Valkyrie had survived, but barely. Of the 12 evacuees they pulled from the smoldering compound, 7 were still in medical stasis. 2 had died en route. The silence in the mess hall had become more deafening than the drone swarms. Captain Reyes joined him without a word, her boots clicking once against the metal before she leaned on the rail beside him. Her eyes, always steady, held something different now, distance laced with calculation. "Command classified the engagement," she said. "No formal debrief, no combat ribbons. Official line is hostile weather-induced crash and extraction." Halverson chuckled bitterly. "We dropped something from low orbit and fired 30,000 rounds at cloaked extraterrestrials. But sure, let's call it weather." "They're scared. They're not saying it, but the analysts know. That thing on the ridge was not part of the usual militia cache. It wasn't regional tech, and it sure as hell wasn't a one-off." "I shot it," Halverson said, "square in the chest. It fell. But you think it died?" Reyes shrugged. "You ever see blood? Number just sparks and, I don't know, static." "They retrieved something from the impact site." She paused, lowering her voice. "A neural relay. Not made here. Even our top brass couldn't decrypt it. Just patterns. As if it was still processing. Listening." Halverson's knuckles tightened on the railing. "And they're not escalating?" "They're deploying ghost teams into similar zones. Deep black ops, no press, no oversight." A long silence passed between them. Then Reyes added, "I volunteered us for one." His eyes snapped toward her. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. You're the only gunner I trust to see the unseen." Halverson turned back to the horizon, considering it. "You know what this means, right? If they're using our conflicts to test their systems, we're not fighting rebels anymore. We're just the proving ground. Or the warm-up act," she said quietly, "for something bigger." They stood there as the sun disappeared fully, replaced by the glow of stars, not the romantic kind, but sharp, distant, cold. Unblinking watchers from above. Later in the armory, Halverson ran diagnostics on a new rig, an upgraded variant of the GAU-21X, fitted with dampened recoil, biometric locking, and an adaptive target sync protocol designed specifically for cloaked hostiles. It wasn't issued to standard units. This was prototype gear, pulled from black labs with no serial numbers. Across the hangar, Vake was prepping a new Valkyrie. Sleeker, quieter, its engines tuned for silence, and its skin a matte black that shimmered like water. No logos, no national insignia. They were ghosts now, not soldiers, not even assets, just variables in a math problem that no one wanted to solve. "Lex," Reyes called out from the side, tossing him a thumb drive. "Coordinates. We launch in 6 hours. Cold drop over the Sahel. Intel suggests another anomaly. Same energy readings, same drone pattern, but this time they've adapted." Halverson caught it, pocketed it, and nodded. "So we adapt harder." As he walked toward the ship, he paused under the wing. His hand ran along the hull, and for a moment, he thought of Earth. Not the politics, not the wars, but the quiet things. The trees near his mother's cabin. The dogs that used to bark when he came home. A world worth protecting. "Hey, Cap," he said over his shoulder. Reyes looked up from her data pad. "Yeah?" "If this goes bad, if this is more than just a field test, I want one thing made clear." She arched a brow. "What's that?" "That I wasn't afraid of the dark, just what was learning to crawl out of it." Reyes smiled faintly. "Then let's remind them who taught the galaxy to fight in the mud." They loaded up in silence. The new Valkyrie's engines whispered to life, and the hangar bay opened like a mouth to the sky. No fanfare, no anthem, just gravity and resolve. As the ship peeled into the night, Halverson took his place behind the GAU, eyes locked forward. Whatever was out there, whatever was watching, the ghosts were coming. And this time they weren't waiting to be hunted. They were hunting back.